Howdy! Back with more serious academics with a sense of humor. Making sure my finger is on the screen. The fun never ends unless you let it. Don't let it. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of fun here because I always have fun giving this lecture, and I don't know if you're grinning or smirking because you'd rather be doing something else. Opportunity cost. I'll try to lessen that with a little bit of additional humor here. All right, so hopefully you watched the overview, infrastructure overview video, and we're going to do a couple short ones here to follow with some specifics such as the sewer pipes. Remember that thing from the other video? It's, you know, if you have a peak flow of sewage down the pipe and there's not enough capacity in the pipe, at least hopefully the city's flat and it just won't go down your toilet because the main line is full. You know, if the city's not flat, the people who are down at the lower elevations, it's from the peep or upper, it's going to come out of their toilet or sink or whatever. And okay, anyway, so is there any danger of that happening? Well, I heard one time that an awful lot of people go to the can at the same time at Super Bowl halftime. Yeah. Now, can you imagine a public ad campaign before that to say, please don't. Lives are at stake. Well, maybe not lives. Yeah, the sewage treatment plant, you know, maybe the time. Please avoid, you know, public, just begging people not to flush. They can still, you know, do their thing, but it's yellow, let it mellow, you know, that kind of thing. Just, you know, flush later, not right at halftime. What about the end of the game? Well, that's another possibility. But usually if the end of the game is, if it's not close, well then that spreads out the flow a little bit. Okay, so if you remember from that earlier video, right, if we put on, so I put on one of the supply lines right away, pre-drew those. Okay, if we have a planning period, right, the P for supply planning, how big of a pipeline should we plan? Should we plan it all the way over here to meet the peak demand, which might only be one event all year? You know, there's ups and downs during the day and whatever, but you know, there's some mini peaks here and there, which is why, for example, I've drawn my price here, not right through the intersection, but a little bit above. We want a little bit of surplus capacity, right, to handle those just random ups and downs and people flushing and bathing and cleaning stuff, and, you know, evening meals, breakfast, that kind of, not so much at lunch, because that time when people have lunch varies quite a bit. So, you know, but if we don't have that pricing mechanism available to us, right, then, you know, maybe we should build the big capacity right here. So I'm going to draw one of the lines here. Oops, page moved. Okay, so S double prime there might be what you'd want to plan out. Again, when the intersection between those two supply lines tends to be the planned amount. Okay, so that's the planned capacity, and they could have at this price had more capacity or less capacity. Once it's built, now the supply line in the short run, maybe even the intermediate run, becomes this this S double prime pipeline. And you can see that would be quite costly to have that level of marginal cost all year long, just because you're afraid of a flood at the sewage treatment plant and at lower elevation homes, 1 hour or even like a half hour a year. Wow. Okay, so what might you be tempted to do? Okay, so maybe what you're tempted to do is have S prime, okay, this one that I just drew, if I can find it on there, okay, maybe have S prime as your supply of sewage treatment plants. So again, the intersection would be this level of capacity with some opportunity to adjust the available supply of capacity in the short run. Pipe cleanup, for example, would allow a little bit of additional flow and fewer impediments, fewer things stuck to the inside of the pipes. You know, it flows a little smoother and faster, increases the capacity a little bit. Okay, so to avoid that giant shortage, right, from this smaller design level of capacity, but which handles the flows, the normal flows, except that Super Bowl halftime most of the year, you'd have to charge P prime. Is that a pun? P prime? Didn't realize that till now. See, the fun never ends unless you let it. You're thinking, you're rolling your eyes. I used to do groaners when I was a kid. You know, they had radio stations. This is in the 1960s. People would write in groaners, like the opposite of a joke. I did that. So people just don't change, you know. All right, so you have that price. Okay. You advertise it in advance. You say, if you flush right at Super Bowl halftime, we know when that's going to be. That's going to be about 7 o'clock. And depending on what time zone you live, usually the Super Bowl starts at about 5:30 in Central Time where I live. 7 something, you know. If you flush between 7:15 and 7:45, $10 on your Super Bowl, on your sewage bill. And of course, most people won't be too happy with that if that isn't announced big time beforehand. But if you can manage to resist, yeah, go pee. Just don't flush then. Flush later. Let it accumulate. Okay. You know, no additional charge. Okay. That requires time of day metering. Okay. For that time of that day. And that installing that just to handle that one flow may cost more than having supply at S double prime rather than at S prime. Okay. Double prime, right? That's this one over here. Okay. Prime, that's that one there. All right, so there's your basic lesson. If you can efficiently and cheaply use pricing, you get by with a lot smaller miles and miles and miles and miles, a lot of money, sewage treatment pipes. But if you can't do that, or just doesn't make economic sense, the meters may cost a lot, every house would have to have a meter that would say, John and Mary flushed at 7:30 on Super Bowl Sunday. Yellow, mellow, fine, but brown, flush it down. We've got guests, we don't want to gross them out. It's in that $10 zone. Oh, well, you know, splurge on our guests. We don't smell that stuff. See, that's what ration out available means. You don't think people would discover, $5 or $10 extra on their sewer bill that said flushed at Super Bowl halftime on there? And they'd say, whoops, I forgot about that. Okay. Or, yeah, I knew that. Had to flush. Stunk real bad. And others say, yeah, I remember that. I said, I was about to reach the handle. Nope. No, I'm going to wait 15 minutes and not cost myself, whatever that is, the $5 or $10. Okay. Probably, I'm guessing those meters are more expensive than saving on the extra pipe. Maybe not. And as a result, maybe it would make sense just to build the bigger pipe and make sure that sewage doesn't back up into homes at Super Bowl halftime, not to mention, endanger the folks at the bottom of the line where they treat the sewage and overwhelm and overflow everything down there. All right, just a couple of other thoughts about that. I live in San Antonio, Texas. There's a lot of Cowboys and Texan fans here. You think they should build let's just say back on this one here, they decide they want to do the meters. This doesn't make sense, too expensive. People will ignore them. They won't remember. They'll be drunk watching the Super Bowl. They'll unthinkingly flush. It's not going to work. Got to build a bigger pipe. Still, the issue is how big. Should we build it big enough to handle the flow that would result if the Cowboys and Texans ever play? Wow, that would be a big pipe. I know here in most of Texas, there'd be 2 or 3 times as many people watching the Super Bowl as if just anybody's playing anybody else. Okay, so do you want to build the pipe to match the peak of the peak of the peak flow? Maybe that's when you ought to have the public service announcements ready, where you show somebody floating in muck, saying, "Why did you flush? Why? Please don't do that again." Maybe show those to handle the peak flow, the once in every. How likely is it that the Cowboys are going to ever play the Texans, or your local teams? If you're in New York, the Jets play the Giants, or something, or in Los Angeles, the Rams play the Chargers, okay, or San Francisco, the Raiders play the 49ers, okay. So, see, and then what about the capacity expansion potential? How expensive is that? See, those are key assumptions in all of this. All right, so that's the latest lesson in model building and thinking economics, thinking efficiency. On to the next.